And as usual, home again, jiggity jig. So I was thinking about this, that one of the things that I was just reading some history stuff, and I was remembering about sanitariums. And so a lot of people, especially the millennials, you all don't remember, you probably guys don't have a lot of references to the idea of sanitariums and the era of mental illness and stuff like that, when people would put other people and lock them up for strange behavior, and so now a lot of people are asking, well, why are there all these things that people do that we just have no explanation for? And it's no, we didn't explain them before, we just put them in sanitariums. So a lot of young people don't quite have the reference. This was something I was familiar with from my childhood, but it was even rarely discussed then. It was sort of this vague memory. And the baby boomers really see themselves, these people who triumphed over the misapplication of pseudo-scientific psychology or something, that what really now is, you just keep talking to crazy people and letting them be crazy and do crazy things, and you keep throwing money at all their crazy problems. That's what we do now, that we don't really deal, we basically never make a decision. We just constantly have a problem, we never make a decision. And so it's something that I thought about the MGTOW guys. This is actually one of the things that's really important about the orderliness of society, and there won't be a way around this. This is specifically civilized, literate white people's way that they dealt with their problems up just outside of living memory, or sanitariums. And key to the sanitarium population were fucking sluts. Let's just make it understood. It was understood to be a mental illness. If you fucked around a lot, it was probably because you're mentally unstable. Now, it's not that we don't know that there is actually, that we have an absolute scientific tie between these two. But of course now, one of the things that came up was stuff like Robert Breithaupt, what research had been done on matriarchies, what could be understood about how humans actually bred, that basically, for millions of years, humans were just kind of inbreeding. And that it was only because of the challenges offered by the terrain of Northern Europe that you started to get people who actually would form a type of raiding, a culture of raiding and a culture of hierarchy, that at some point you would have a group that would separate and go westward toward the Atlantic Ocean, which would freeze, that region would get buffeted by short ice ages, so that they would have to keep going inland, as Varg talks about the inner Europeans. And that now, so that, one of the weirdest things, there's HBD chick had said it was the French who had changed breeding patterns in Europe. They were actually one of the key groups that had instituted manorialism. So the idea of you can get a parcel of land as long as you had a stable household and wife and could farm it. And it could be passed on through your family as long as you paid the proper leases and all that, and rents to the landlord. That changed. Well, not only did that change a lot of breeding patterns in the Mediterranean part of Western Europe, but it was instituted by the Catholic Church, and it permanently changed breeding patterns. It was a permanent change from that point on. The idea of breeding with a cousin became eventually completely illegal under church law, and it had to be something like second or third cousin or something like that was the closest it could be. This changed everything. This is actually one of the horrible truths about lagging populations. The likelihood that they have high consanguinity is just very, very high. This is why they're lagging. Any sort of almost all negative traits are compounded when and that you basically get people who they are possibly unbelievably well adapted to their local environment, but cannot adapt to the environment where the mate, the exogamous mate came from. So an exo, outside, gamos, gamete. So a lot of times people will talk about mountain people and esteem them. Well, mountain people are isolated, and the likelihood is that they're maintaining the oldest form of that respective culture with high consanguinity. This is also why mountain people, they're also sort of infamous eventually to people of the valleys and people of cities, because they're more violent. They're notoriously more violent because they're more clannish. This is actually one of the things HBD really concentrated on, HBD chick, is clannishness. Sticking with your kith and kin for no other reason than to do it. And that's very odd for Northern Europeans. They find that a very odd thing to do. The only time you see it is with those of the ancient tradition. Nobles and low nobles stick very much with their family. This is also one of the reasons why you see so few families who are wealthy. Like multi-generational wealth inherited throughout the family. Most families don't stick together. So, one of the things I kind of was walking home thinking about, or just sitting there doing my thing at work, and sitting there thinking, there's a lot of this stuff that there's no way of solving it. The neo-monarchist types, you of course are gonna love this video, but there's not really a way of solving it. Bad human behavior has pretty much always been solved from the top down. That there's some part of society that wants to get things orderly again because things are disorderly, and they just simply put together some policy that will do this. And as with manorialism, fundamentally, what it is that was a form of positive eugenics. This is a way that you basically, said, I'm betting on this winner, and winner, if you do what I want, you will have. If you don't do what I want, you will not have. And that's why France is the way France is. It would have never been, it would have stayed like the Balkans. The level of consanguinity would have stayed way too high, and it would have doomed France. We would never esteem its culture. It probably wouldn't have even been able to stay a whole nation without them severely altering their breeding patterns. Now, I know there's going to be a bunch of people who are going to be like, oh, that Pope, and fuck him, making people do this, making people do that. Well, but this is the thing, is I want you to really think about what the hell were they supposed to do. People were fucking their cousins. They were absconded by Saracens. They could barely get shit done. But they could look back at the Roman era and know things were better. But of course they didn't know about lead poisoning. So they didn't understand why everything fell apart. It was as if some evil spirit came from within, tore it all apart. So, at some point, when people fundamentally just don't know what to do, it's top-down regulation of behavior. Now, the manorial system does posit, if you reward people for behavior that will eventually be very good, then you're set. This, of course, is the libertarian argument to society. All other arguments are central planning and are mostly coming from the left or the authoritarian end of the right, and really more the neocons, the neocons and like sort of the real kookball religious, Republican conservatives. They'll for some reason they want to force people to do one thing, but there's all kinds of other shit that it's like, this a real easy thing to do. Just abolish the IRS, and there's all kinds of problems that you'll be rid of. And oh well, but you see, oh but and no, but Jesus and the tax man and Jesus and so it's just like fuck them. And so now I just wanted to make sure to put that out there, that this idea of, well, I mean, people have faced a lot of these problems before. It's just that, we're just not making decisions.